Welcome to a podcast about leadership. I'm your host, Thom Fox, and this month we have a very special episode for you. We're going to be focusing in on the Elevate Project, which is an initiative at AIIR Consulting where world-class leadership coaches offer their time pro bono to coach leaders in nonprofits supporting at-risk youth, families, and communities. And we have some special guests with us today to really share in that experience. Joneé Billy, who has been the coachee of the program. She's a senior director of strategic partnerships and external affairs at Powerplay. We also have Tonushree Mondal, who is an executive coach with over 25 years of expertise in talent, culture, and leadership, who works with senior leaders globally and volunteers pro bono with the Elevate Project. And then Tracie Gilstrap, the director of partner network engagement at Youth Inc. and creator of the award-winning Rise Academy for Leaders of Color. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being on the program.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
This is wonderful to hear about this. We've been hearing more about the Elevate Project and just hearing more about the success have come through it. I'm really happy to have Joneé on the program so you can tell us a little bit about your experience. But really, what I wanted to learn a little bit about first is, can you tell us a little bit about Powerplay, their mission, and the impact it's making in the community?
Yeah, sure. So Powerplay's mission, we are a 26-year-old organization based in New York City, and our mission is to advance the lives of girls through sports, helping them build confidence, develop leadership skills, and foster healthy lifestyles. Our programs create a safe space for girls, especially those from underserved communities, to engage in sports and physical activities that they may not otherwise have access to. Our impact is significant. We're not only promoting equity in sports, but also empowering the next generation of female leaders while utilizing a lot of the skill sets that you develop, the leadership skill sets that you develop from being an athlete.
And what drew you to that mission, serving that purpose?
Yeah, I mean, one, I felt like it really aligned with my personal values. And when I think of my values, sports always comes to the forefront. I'm a former athlete myself. I'm very passionate about community development. I'm very passionate about community building, but I'm also passionate about using sports as a tool for social impact. So I get the opportunity to combine all of my worlds here at Powerplay. And so it's like a perfect fit for me.
And would you play previously?
Basketball.
Awesome.
Yes.
So Tracie, I wanted to hear a little bit about, I know you've kind of brought people together into this program to some degree, and I wanted to learn a little bit about Youth Inc. and the Rise Academy for Leaders of Color. What drew you to Youth Inc. and more importantly, what helped you to bring up the Rise Academy of Leaders of Color?
Sure. So I came to Youth Inc. as a capacity builder, and Youth Inc. is a capacity builder. We're 30 years old this year. And we have been working in the youth development space, really working to shore up and build the infrastructures of currently 87 nonprofit partners with over 250,000 youth they serve, and really helping these organizations be better so that the young people that they serve are able to get the best from the organizations that are working with them. And so Rise Academy actually comes from my experience in 2020. I was working as an interim chief program officer at Youth Inc. And I was sitting and just the thoughts came to me about my experience, wanting to see leaders of color not struggle the way that I've seen them over the course of my career. And so I looked at the areas in which they struggled in leadership, in governance, financial management, fundraising. And I also learned from Youth Inc. about mentoring and what that looked like in the corporate space, and wanted to combine those worlds. And so Rise Academy was born. And we were fortunate enough to work with Jennifer Rutledge, who comes out of Adelphi University, and she was also a consultant of Youth Inc. And we were able to really marry the curriculum that was at Adelphi with the thoughts that I had already come up with, and really create something unique at Youth Inc. because we had the curriculum for the leaders and also working with the organizations. And what I wanted to do was wrap around mentorship and executive coaching, understanding that coaching was so important to so many of the executives that I've talked to at my tenure at Youth Inc. So that's how we got here.
I served previous life, I was in a nonprofit for 17 years. And I definitely have seen where coaching is needed, the availability is not there, funding, whatever it is. Go out, have fun, make an impact.
Right.
Great. How do I do that? I can use some
Mm.
direction or support sometimes in order to make that mission come to fruition. So it's awesome to hear that somebody had the wherewithal to say, I see this opportunity here. I need to build it. And you have a pretty big footprint. It sounds like. I mean, that's a what, a 250,000 kids overall that are under the purview of these leaders. So to really
Yes. And
get in there
growing.
and help them align and growing. So that's impactful. So when you look at that program, does it have a certain? Is there an eligibility to participate in the Rise Academy, or is it?
Absolutely. So of our 87 partners, all of the entire network is available. And the leaders or staff that work in those organizations are eligible to apply. We're looking for leaders of color who work in any area within their organization. So you don't have to work on program. You can work in operations. In fact, we want it to be very diverse group of individuals that
Yeah.
come and participate in that program.
Oh, we learn from one another and we learn about our different roles and things like that. And we have our leadership journey together, and something that maybe, is interesting to one person is impactful to another, and you can grow up that understanding and build together a nice cohort or community of folks that you're growing with. So it's going on that journey with people on the same kind of path, so to speak. Like I shared,
Yeah.
nonprofit life sometimes is it
It's a
can be
journey.
challenging, and it's got its own unique challenges as well too. So it's good to be on that journey with people that are like minded or going through those aspects.
Yeah, the I will say that the Rise Academy, we're in our third cohort right now. We started with 10. Joneé was a part of the first cohort of 10 leaders, and we're now up to 13 leaders. We have worked really hard to get men because the nonprofit space is really dominant with women and powerful women at that. But we wanted to see some of the men come to fore, and so they have. We have a nice size cohort of 13, and of the 13, 6 of them are gentlemen in the
Oh, nice.
nonprofit space. Yeah.
Ah, so I guess we hear about your program. My curiosity then goes to obviously here at AIR we have the Elevate project. How did you get connected with the Elevate project?
So it was a colleague of ours who had a connection to someone outside. So one of our corporate contacts had a connection to AIR, and they introduced us to AIR. Right when the pandemic started, the previous executive at the Elevate Project came to me. We were having conversations. I asked for a coach because I was in an interim position. And as I was going through my interim position, I began to create Rise. And I was offered another coach to help me think through the creation of Rise. So AIR has been intricate in helping us really think through Rise. They have been so supportive in when I asked for coaches for the leaders. They've been so supportive in giving us coaches for every leader. I very rarely get a no. I get we will make it happen. They've been willing to learn with us, understanding that diversity, racial diversity, and equity is important. And so they've really worked with us to help us find coaches of color who could lean in and support our leaders with that lens. And it's been an amazing journey because we've had coaching relationships that have continued outside of Rise, where coaches have been engaged with executives or with leaders
Hmm.
outside of Rise. And I just a testament to the commitment of the coaches that AIR has.
We got one of those fabulous coaches on our interview today. We're going to get to Tonushree in a few moments, but Joneé, I'm thinking, as I'm looking at, hearing this story. Obviously, you connected to the Elevate project through Rise. What were some of the things when you first got a coach that you wanted to focus on? as you looked at yourself and you said, wow, this is a great opportunity. I'm in this program. I'm going to get a coach. Where is it? And obviously you got a background in sports, so you know the importance of coaching. Got someone
Yeah,
looking out there over the whole playing field, seeing what's going on, understanding, but also having the wherewithal to look ahead a little bit, understand their people a little bit, know when to dig in and
yeah.
offer encouragement, but when to challenge. So was it similar to like sports coaching, or was it a little bit more hectic, or how did you enjoy the experience? What did you focus on?
That's so interesting. I've never even thought about like the parallels of like sport coaching to executive coaching. I would say it depends, right? It depends on your level. I would say
Hmm.
sport coaching, you're looking for your coach to set the play essentially and tell you what to do. That is not what executive coaching is, right? And Tonushree made it very clear. This is for you to figure it out. And so I'm going to ask the questions and I'm going to force you to think deeply and hard and intentionally about what it is that you want to get out of this. And I'll guide you, but I'm not here to make the decision for you. I'm not here to give you the answer. So they're definitely different.
Yes.
But to answer your original question, when I think about the areas of the challenging areas that I needed to do, that I wanted to focus on when I first got into coaching, I think one of the first ones were establishing boundaries. I think every nonprofit leader, there's a level of right? Because especially in the nonprofit spaces, especially these smaller nonprofits, you're wearing multiple hats. And this idea of like, I'm super ambitious and I'm a go getter. And it's like, what does that look like when you try to balance being a go getter, being ambitious, and having a life and taking care of yourself, right? You can't be a hypocrite and telling young people, hey, pour into yourself, self care. And it's like, you're not taking care of your individual goals, right? Or yourself. So that's one of the first things that we definitely focused on. And I'm proud to say that I'm still, establishing my boundaries and where, we play with it a little times, right? It's not perfect, but much improvement. I think the other part of it was enhancing my overall leadership skill sets, particularly around managing a team and fostering a culture of collaboration and innovation, because one that's true to your identity and one that's true to my personality.
So it sounds like you had a super awesome coach to help you out with that. And I guess thank you very much, Snushu, for being so patient so far in our interview.
Thank you.
I want to ask you, when you began coaching with Joneé, what were some of the main areas that you focused on? Like, when she said to establish these areas, boundaries, and so on like that, working on skills, we all have to start someplace on the journey, that first step that we take. As a coach, what's typically, your approach when you're working with somebody who has some of those goals and objectives?
Sure. So I'm glad Janae brought up the point around not telling her what to do, but having her discover for herself, because that is kind of the fundamental thing that you have to put in place. It is a path of self-discovery. So oftentimes the coachee is thinking you're coming with the answers, you're coming with the solutions, but that's not the case. It is really her discovering her own journey, her trying to understand the areas she wanted to focus on, and not necessarily changing the people around her, but her response to the people around her, right? So she mentioned the psychological tools that we use. So data is very powerful. Data helps the person see why they are wired some way and how they are coming across to others. So one was using data. Two was really trying to get her to address the root cause issues. And she mentioned establishing boundaries. That was one. It was also, she has pretty high standards. So often the people around her may not have the same high standards, and it's easy to get frustrated as to why they're not moving at the same pace. So helping her understand her own response to these, setting her own boundaries, understanding what negative thoughts were crowding her mind at that time, and then coming up with a different way of responding to it, which was a little more thoughtful, a little more kind of processing these things through, and then coming across with the best impact she might want out of that relationship at that point in time. So it's in the coaching world, we say the negative thoughts in your mind are the gremlins. Have you, first of all, identified your gremlins? And then do you have a way to address those gremlins? And that takes you forward in your journey.
So basically not pouring water on them. So we have millions of more gremlins popping up all over the place. You said something, I remember back to previous life, I was doing a lot of traveling for leadership development. And we would always say to somebody, we would work with psychometric assessments. And the goal was never to change you, but to help you manage things because any strength over dial can become a weakness. I'm a high energy individual. That sometimes leads to me moving too fast. And while that can be a benefit at certain times, if we're moving too fast, that's when, it can become a weakness or an area of development. So it's good. And I benefited from, a good mentor who brought that to my attention. And we don't know these things sometimes because we're living in our own world and we have to move at the speed of business or the speed of philanthropy or whatever it is. Things move fast. So it's good to have that perspective from that outside, I'd say not disinterested, but someone's got that different perspective and say, all right, don't be perfection or don't let perfection be the enemy of good is I think something else that pops up sometimes too when we are like, oh, I think just perfect. Like we need it really good, perfect, maybe. But it's good to have that journey and so on. So I guess, how did coaching, I mean, Joneé, if we look at that and hearing some of that, how did coaching help you navigate some of those things? So those tendencies and so on like that. How have you processed those things and worked to just be, better leader or a better colleague to folks around you?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the book recommendation. So one, there's homework, right?
Okay.
I'm going to guide you through all these questions, but at the same time, there is homework. You will go back. She recommended some really awesome books that you deep dive into, and so and these books. So one of my favorite is actually The Monkey Mind, because I know that I'm my biggest critic, and so being able to name it and be like, nope, that's your monkey mind, let's redirect it. It has been absolutely amazing. I think another book that we've been focused on, or that one of the last books we read, was Energy Leadership. And so understanding how your energy that you bring into a space, how that changes a room, how that impacts leadership, how that changes your entire team, but also identifying other people's leadership qualities, right? Or energetic leadership qualities. All of these things, one, I don't think I had the language or even the vision to be able to point out these things. So now that I'm armed with this newfound knowledge, I'm able to step into a place. I've always already been kind of, I look around, I see, I observe, I'm very observant, but being able to name it now, it's like, okay, this is what I need to do. This is how I address you differently. This is how I switch the narrative. So it's arming me with all of these tools to better the team and better the overall organization, and not just me as an individual.
I got to say, Tracie, as I sit here and I listen to Joneé, I'm pretty excited about her development so far. I got to imagine, as someone who's been a part of this work and trying to build something like this, hearing this kind of feedback has got to be pretty rewarding to some degree.
It is rewarding. I think of that first cohort as, those were the tests, they were the beta tests, and to see her just change and evolve and grow into, like, we invite Joneé to come and be in our videos for You Think. We have now asked her to come speak at our gala. It's like I'm literally watching her ascend. I'm literally watching her step into her power and her confidence. And when she steps into the spaces, I see this woman who is very aware of what she carries as she walks into the space.
I got to think, Tonushree, as being a coach, hearing this from our coach, from the coachee saying, I did these things, I learned. I mean, it's got to be awesome as a coach too, because it's not easy work. I mean, even though you're sitting there and you're saying, I'm not here to give you the answers, we still have to listen attentively. We still have to really understand where someone's coming from and understand the challenges that they face. So from a coaching perspective, we can really work in an effective way to move them in productive directions. So to hear when someone's moving in that direction, I have old coachees when I've seen them and I'm doing great now. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. it's just so good to see someone come alive. And I'm just asking you that perspective, from a coaching perspective, that's got to be, rewarding as well, but also I would imagine invigorating. The work that we put out there to work with somebody, they grasp to it, they gravitate towards it.
Definitely. I mean, in coaching, as I said, it's the individual's journey. They have to move from point A to point B, but they define what point A is and what point B is. And I'm just helping to take them to point B. And watching them actually go to that point B is just the most soul search like rewarding thing for us, right? That you help them on that journey to get to where they wanted to go. And I've had the opportunity to actually coach her twice with an interval in between. And just watching her even evolve from how she was in that first instance to the next instance was quite something. She mentioned the books and the homework, just to give you an example. We've always been talking about books, and she diligently did her homework, wanted to read books, but I could see a difference in the way she had actually read the books in the first round versus the appetite with which she was devouring these books in the second time and actually talking through each portion of it. Who you are, for the most part, doesn't change. Who you want to be and the impact you're having on other people is what you can change or can control.
What you get out of things, what you put into it. So if you are involved in these great kind of programs through Rise and so on like that, but also working through Elevate project, it is the effort. And with any coaching, we're not just talking nonprofit, but any coaching that you're involved in, it is to your point, Tonushree, it's helping to understand where you want to get to, and having that person, I'd say, Sherpa you there to some degree, but you have to do the work. It is hard work. And I would say, Joneé, sounds like you put in a lot of hard work. I'd be curious, do you have a success story that came from your coaching experience, something that happened like, after all this coaching, you got involved in this leadership challenge or whatever it may be, and you're like, oh man, I'm thankful I had that coaching because I can tackle this challenge this way.
Yeah. What I would say one of the biggest success stories coming out of this space has been the way I interact with peers, but also the way that I interact with direct reports. I talk about my ambition and, being a go-getter. And Tonushree mentioned the word pace and me moving at a pace that an understanding that not everybody works at that pace, right? And I think previously my thinking would be, you know what, it's okay, I got it. I'm gonna do it because I'm gonna get it done a lot faster. But that's what leads to the burnout. And if you're gonna honor the boundaries and you're going to honor this idea of work-life balance, no, I'm going to support you in developing the tools so you can do it. And so when you come back, okay, I'm not really happy with it, I'm going to send you back to fix it with steps, right? So it's how do you communicating effectively, ensuring that people are armed also with the tools so that they can get their jobs done. And so we're all working at a pace that works best for the organization, and not just, like you said, this idea of perfection. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so let's just keep moving. It will get there eventually. It's not the who gets there fastest, but it's how the ultimate goal of getting there.
No, and that's, you make me think back to a former leader I had. One of their feedback was they used to crumple up the paper and just throw it on the ground, and that was the feedback. What do you do with that? Nothing. I got nowhere to go with that. I can't move anywhere with that. But to your point, when we say, all right, I understand that people move at different paces, they need different directions, so on like that, having the wherewithal as a leader like yourself to say, let me slow down. This is a teachable moment. Maybe I didn't get it back to the way that I wanted it, but there's some good stuff here. This is where I have to coach someone else, and I have to pass on that coaching baton and help them grow as an individual and help them cultivate themselves. What my old mentor used to say, that the goal of his leaders is to create leaders in their wake. So the more leaders that we can create as we go on in life, the better we are for it. So it sounds like you're on a good pace to say, all right, well, listen, I'm going to help other people grow around me as well. And to your point, you save yourself a little bit as well too, because if you try to do everything, I do all things poorly.
Yeah.
So it sounds awesome that you've had a good experience in there to kind of move out of that mindset somewhat. So I'd say this, Tonushree, how many people have you coached through Elevate? Is Joneé one of the few people? Have there been other people that you coached as well through the program?
No, I've coached other people as well. Joneé was amongst my earlier ones and left me with the great feeling of kind of, like I said, it's soul nourishing and coach. That's what coaching is always for me because you can see the impact on an individual and then hopefully through the individual macro to the organizational level. So I love coaching and I love the Elevate project that AIR does.
I think you
we
forgot the
appreciate.
word favorite, Tonushree.
Oh, yes. She's my favorite coachee.
No, I say I appreciate that too because this is pro bono work for you. You know what I mean? So you're
Yes.
giving your time and your effort and energy independently of this because you have a passion for it. And so that's
Yes.
I gravitate towards that as well too because listen, it is wonderful to do these things that bring us great joy and great success in life, but we can give back a little bit on top of it too.
That's right.
Especially something we care about. It's that cherry on top of everything. I'll take that too. I'll have my cake and eat it, so to speak. So that's awesome. Tracie, I'm just curious too, if we look at the Rise Academy and so on like that, how do you see the broader impact of the initiative like that and its ongoing relationship with something like the Elevate Project?
So the purpose of Rise was to build the next generation of leaders, but to also line them and let people know that they're there. They're there, they're equipped, they're available, they're ready, and get rid of the myth that there were no leaders available and equipped to lead. They were there all along. So it's really to raise the visibility of it. And then what we've seen though is that not only are they growing in their spaces and advancing in their careers, but there's a responsibility that they're carrying with them that they're coming back now to be mentors to the next cohort that's coming through. I have several that have already committed to being mentors. And so the Elevate Project has just continued to help us look further to how we can help organizations really focus and take their leaders to the next level, helping other leaders who, the Rise Project is limited in how many they can take in at a time. And so there are opportunities where coaching comes up and Elevate Project has said, you need coaches. We will supply you with coaches, as many coaches as we can offer at a time. And that's the one thing that I really learned and appreciated about the coaches. And so much so that I've gone out to now become a certified coach myself.
No, that's great. I mean, and especially when you look at coaches, the coaches that AIR brings through the Elevate Project, I mean, you get the same coaches that work with executives and CEOs around the globe, and they're pretty sharp. I appreciate the conversation, really just helping to get a lens on how everything came together, the coaching experience, what we learned, and I guess I'd be a little curious as to some closing thoughts from everyone. Joneé, I'd start with you to some degree. What are your future plans, and how do you plan to continue to apply the lessons learned from coaching?
Yeah, I think my future plans for Powerplay, that would be centered on scaling the work that we're doing, ensuring that it's sustainable, expanding our reach so that we can impact even more girls and more in even, expand our impact in more girls in underserved communities. I want to continue to build partnerships. I really enjoy that, that angle of going to a corporate and saying, hey, like there's so much more to social impact than showing up one day and taking a picture and saying, hey, we checked that quota, we checked that box, but how can we make real lasting change? I'm really excited about that. I think the lessons that I've learned through coaching that have been invaluable in shaping my vision. I have a deeper understanding of the importance of strategic planning and team management and just, sustainable growth. So I think overall, just refining my focus on my approach to leadership and ensuring that it's collaborative and it's empowering. And all of this will be critical as I move to the next phase of growth in my journey.
Yeah, leadership is not for the faint of heart. Not just taking 2-hour lunches. There's some stuff you have to do when you lead, and it can be very challenging. So I definitely appreciate when you say you have looking at strategically and the wherewithal from that. I mean, things move pretty fast in nonprofit, and funding is there one day, the next day it's not.
Yes.
And, and you have to tap dance pretty quick sometimes. So having that wherewithal to kind of stand back a little bit, take that strategic perspective, understand that there are other routes and really look at that. That's awesome. And I think that's going to serve you well as you continue to grow here and beyond. Well, that's
Thank
fantastic.
you so much. Mhm.
Yeah, Tonushree, I'd say, you obviously have a passion for coaching and so on like that. And I know we talked a little bit about your background, but I guess I'd say if you had to look at the differences between like coaching someone in, let's say, traditional businesses versus the nonprofit sector, why would you, is there an argument, is there a reasoning that coaching is more impactful or important for nonprofit leaders?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I actually do coach a fair bit in the non for profit, and this funding pressure they're talking about is universal, right? So you're trying to get the funds, you're trying to manage the funds, and you have to do a lot with very less. In some instance, you're in a strange setup where you're challenged a lot more, and therefore you are more prone to, you can very easily like forget about all those leadership skills in the moment because the stress around you is quite high, given kind of that environment. So amidst all that, how do you still continue to have an, stay calm under pressure, be even keel, and continue to practice all these aspects of leadership coaching is in itself a challenge. And I think, therefore, for Joneé, the going forward piece is really about sustainability. How can she, amidst all these continued challenges, continue to kind of hear me in her ear, which I'm sure she will, and keep practicing the things that we've discussed and not lose sight of those in the moment?
Yeah, that is interesting about the nonprofit sector. And I've been out of it for over a decade now. And you made me think a little bit about when you start talking about those aspects, those challenges that are there. You used to go out for a grant funding for $1 million. Then the next time you go for the grant, it's not there anymore. Or the parameters have changed. And you can't count on that for your budget anymore. But you still need that $1 million. So we got to figure out where to get it from. And it's not like we could just launch a new product or charge more for our services or anything like that. So to your point, those parameters that are really on those nonprofit leaders does suggest it's a little bit, they're definitely playing in a different sandbox, so to speak, overall. Tracie, what's next for you think in the Rise Academy, and how do you see it continue to support leaders like Joneé?
So You Think turns 30 this year. We're celebrating for the next year or so. We've just completed our strategic plan. And so using the process of capacity building and understanding that our process will be working on the long term and the short term. So the long term is the things that we traditionally do, strategic planning, leadership development, all the things. But in the short term, you all have like kind of touched on it, the volatility of the nonprofit sector. And we're really trying to work understanding and supporting our executives and leaders in the space with like short-term solutions, resources, connecting them to resources, whether it's money or it's people. We're doing those things. And as far as coaching, what I will say is that we've made it's part of our strategic goal to go past the executive space. So we're not just going to work with executive directors, with just the board, but we're making intentional moves to move into middle management and really support them. And one of the things that we want to do is to provide some of the middle managers who are really like innovators and creators to get the additional dollars, but just to also impact the work that they do, help them to be these powerful, strong leaders that are coming through the ranks and with coaching, and opening up their ideas about where they're going, what do they think about their leadership, what does that look like, and then help them really sharpen what it looks like with a coach, and asking the hard questions and having them really think about those answers as they come to them.
Well, it has that cascading effect. There's that old TV show Heroes used to say, save the cheerleader, save the world. And I would say, save the leader, save the world. If we have a good leader that's looking at in the way that they operate and so on, the life of their direct reports are much easier. the people serving under those direct reports, their lives are a little bit easier. So we have this cascading effect when we really get that leader in shape where they understand themselves, the people around them, and how to operate. It just makes that much. Listen, awesome to go into the middle management. One of the statistics that always caught me was 80% of people who made managers never receive any formal training on how to manage.
Right.
They say, here you go. And you go, great.
Right.
How do I do this? I've been an individual contributor since forever. So it's awesome that you're going to be kind of working with those people, help them understand their roles a little bit, because if we give them that support at that level, when they get up to the next level, they're just that much more refined.
Right.
And they're able to operate at have a higher capacity there as well. And they get to work with fantastic coaches as well. Joneé, how can people learn a little bit more about your organization, how to Powerplay, and where they can find a little bit more information about them online, or how they can just learn more in general?
Yeah. Oh, wow. You can definitely follow us at www.powerplaynyc.org. And we're also on all social media platforms at PowerplayNYC.
Awesome. Tracie, what about yourself? If people want to learn more about You Think and Rise, how can they do that?
So we can be found at youthinc-usa.org. And we are on all social media platforms as well. So you can just find us. The big gold box with the black letters with the circle around you, because we're focused on you.
That's awesome. And Tonushree, they can always find you at AIIR. So I'm not too worried about it. Listen, I want to thank you all for coming on today and sharing the stories. I know life is busy, especially working in the nonprofit sector. So I appreciate everybody taking the time out to share a little bit of this. It's so awesome to hear you had a wonderful experience through the Elevate project. And I'm looking forward to hearing more stories across the board. And Tonushree, thank you so much for your efforts and, giving your time to help support this. And Joneé, thank you for sticking with it, taking coaching. Again, I know you said you had an aspect, you're, an athlete, but, the point coaching is a little bit different. I wanted you to do that as opposed to let's help you understand what you want to do and get you there. And Tracie, I really appreciate your leadership and having the wherewithal to build Rise in the first place. And then now you're out there trying to become a coach yourself. Or did you already become a coach? Did you already certify? You're in the process?
I am in the process.
Next time we speak,
finished
hopefully.
class last night.
Oh, well, happy graduation, so to speak. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody for listening. Really appreciate you tuning into a podcast about leadership for this episode, where we talked about the Elevate project and all the wonderful things that it's doing. To discover more about AIIR, our leadership framework, and how we empower leaders to navigate change and shape a better future, we invite you to explore our resources and insights. Visit us at airconsulting.com. That's AIIR Consulting.com. Until next time, thanks for tuning in.